Linking Revit. Linked Revit levels. Let's open up where we left off, 0701. And we'll do a save as 0702, Revit building, begin. Now we've saved as again, and we're going to call this one complete. Okay, let's just write a little note here, linked Revit levels. Okay, so why do we have to deal with the levels in a linked file? Well, let's just go to our south elevation. This is a perfect example. We've got our site linked in to our building, and in our site file, in this particular Revit project file, we purposely put the level of top of foundation wall up at 200 feet. And then we drew everything based upon that because that matches up with our topography, it matches up with any points, any elevation markers, and so on, and it gives us correct geodetic height for our building. That's all well and good, but what about when you get to your building? Well, your building has sort of a zero, right? And now you'll see this, there's a sea level, and then that's actually on top of level 1. So we have different levels, same project, but they're different interpretations of the levels. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to match up the levels. So our building, this is the file that we're in right now, that's really the main interest. And we don't want to adjust the zero to be 200 feet. So for instance, you're always sort of working based off of 200 feet. The next level's 209 feet something. What we want to do is actually bring the site down. So we're going to take this whole file, we're going to use the move command, and we're just going to move that whole thing right down. It still says 200 feet. That's good, right? Now, if we go into the level that's just behind it, I'm just going to hover over, click on that level, and I'm just going to pull that out to the right a little bit. Now you can see there's level 1. Now we're going to just sort this out a little bit. So I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this top of foundation wall. Would you like to rename corresponding views? Yes. Almost always do I say yes to this, because that means that our views in the project browser will match up with our levels. And yes, we want that. Okay, so for our building, we start from 0. For our site, we start from 200 feet. Geodetically, we're all set. The only thing we're going to have to work around a little bit is this expanse down here, which we just don't need for our building. But we're going to use that. It's a best practice in the way that we're working right now. Long term, this is going to help us out. Okay, now what about some other levels for our Revit building project? Well, we haven't even looked at the sketch yet, so we're going to leave the levels as is. We will be adjusting them as the project goes on. Our building is 2 stories, and then there's an addition to it, which is just 1 story, but it does have a roof plate and so on. So I think we'll leave this for now. So let's talk a little bit about Copy Monitor. And there's a tool right here in the Collaborate tab, and it's called Copy Monitor. You can select a link. So there it is right there. Then what you can do is you can copy a level. So I could say, well, I already have one named top of foundation wall. Maybe we take the sea level one and we click on that. What it's going to do is it's going to both copy and monitor this sea level one. Okay, so on my building, the sea level is set to -200. On the Revit site, it's set at 0. But it's also monitoring it. If I just finish this, so I need to click on finish, and now it's going to create a level there. What's happened is if sea level changes, which it won't, but if any level that you copy and monitor changes, then you will get a warning that a level has changed. Same thing with grids. Now, this can also be taken as far as columns, floors. There's quite a bit that it does, but I'm going to give you this one warning. It's not a very complete tool. It's not probably a good idea to use it, except for potentially levels and grids. Even then, it can be good, but it can also be misleading. For example, with columns, you could copy monitor a column, but it's not going to tell you if the column has changed size. It's just going to tell you if it's changed location. So what can happen is you can be under the assumption, well, I'm using copy monitor. If there's any change, it'll tell me. That's not so. So I would avoid this tool until it gets a little bit better developed by Autodesk. At least you know where it is and basically how it works. Now, before we're done, I actually want to get rid of that level. I don't want to have that level copied or monitored in my project. So we're just going to delete that level, and we will go to Close Hidden Windows. We'll save, and we'll go back to recent files.